Oh, look at this. Hey, starting with adventure right away. Good morning. It's Monday. It's May 20th. It's 6 a.m. I'm Pat Kreitlow, and that is Craig Bach over there. Although 60 seconds ago, I wouldn't have bet on it as the lights flickered and he disappeared. And did you hear thunder before the lights flickered and your power went out?
Uh, I heard a little, and then all of a sudden, and nothing like it just like flickered and came back on. It happened like three times. And I'm like, oh, hey everybody, welcome to Monday.
It just had that horror show feel to it. The way the lights were flickering, I'm like, oh, this is not good. But there, Greg is there. So we are not having an internet only show. We're having an actual radio show coming up at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network, where we will bring you Up North News Radio for this Monday, May 20th. We'll recap some of what we did over the weekend. We'll look at items in the news, including the Republican Party of Wisconsin had their state convention. We'll talk a bit about that. We'll talk about national politics that include the Trump trial heading into its final phases here. Another Trump trial was actually supposed to begin today, a long time ago, before it became indefinitely postponed by the Trump appointed judge on the case. Let's see, we should be talking to Kristen Lyerly coming up at 6:30. We will, in our 7 o'clock hour, be hearing from Salina Heller on some of the stories that she is reporting on. And then at 7:30, Senate Democratic leader Dianne Hesselbein will be our guest to talk a bit about the legislative session recently concluded and the fact that there are 20 state Senate races, I think. No, however many there are Democratic candidates in every one of them, which doesn't happen all the time across Wisconsin. So Senator Dianne Hesselbein talking about that. Terry Bell with 3 things you need to know to get the week started. Terry, the Civic Media News Director. So all that, and hopefully Greg stays with us too, depending on the thunder and the lightning and whether Thor is a local radio fan. We'll see in just a bit here on the Civic Media Radio Network. See you soon.
across Wisconsin from Civic Media. This is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It's 6:06 on this Monday morning, May 20th, 2024, 5/20/24. Nice to have you along on another beautiful day to have you here up north. Live from Lake Minnesota, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network, through the app, social media, or by podcast as well. I would normally at this point say, I got a question for you and ask you something intriguing, but I got to tell you, it's been a very interesting morning up to this point that we're going to bring Greg Bach in right away from Waukesha, who I was talking to maybe a minute or two before the show was going to get started. And then he says, uh-oh, and I see his lights flickering, and then he goes, out. He talked about there was thunder and lightning down in the Waukesha area, and I thought, well, there goes Greg. See you in a couple hours, maybe, but about a minute later, you popped back up there. So I guess Thor, the god of lightning, is still a local radio fan. So I like.
He's god of thunder, all right. My
thunder,
goodness.
lightning, all that stuff. So, so you're here, and then just a minute or two before we got the show started, my phone buzzes, and I get a text that says, Pat, I'm not going to be able to make it this morning. But it wasn't in my contacts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what guest is canceling? And I'm thinking 1,000 things like, okay, how can I fill this? Who can I move? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I'm like, but whose number is this? He sends back, it was one of the painting crew from the garage job who was coming to touch up the garage. I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. And then I hear I hear the opening theme. I'm like, all right, ready or not, here we go. Let's put on a show. So here we are. Nice to have you all here. How was your weekend? How's that no mo May going for you?
Okay, for the record, I never signed up for it.
That's why I said no. I said no mo May.
Oh, I double. Yeah, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's fine. It's gone now. It's the no is high, just the no.
Right. But the weather wasn't cooperative. The weather and the scheduling, the grass was growing.
Every
quickly.
time I tried to get out there to mow the lawn, it would rain, and because the lawn was so high, there was tons of captured moisture, like in the last 3-4 inches. Yeah, 3 or 4 inches. That wasn't even the beginning. So it was always wet.
Mm-hmm.
But this weekend was great. So Saturday I mowed the front lawn, and then realized when I tried to take on the backyard, which was
yeah,
it was it didn't destroy my trimmer. It just told me this is not powerful enough, so I had to go buy a new trimmer.
Oh gosh.
So I couldn't do it until Sunday, but I spent I think I spent 2.5 hours in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but after it was all done, it was all good.
You and I both. We both. I had a very long mowing process as well because again, it grows so fast. You have to go over it again and again and again and again so it doesn't clump up. But you were doing the same thing I was, weren't you?
Yep.
Just kind of standing there admiring afterward. You put your fists on your hips, kind of strike that superhero pose and going like, yeah, I did that. Yeah. Meanwhile, across the street from me, farmer's working on his field planting and going, shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
You and your half an acre,
I'm looking at the window. I'm just looking out the window. Just no conversation at the house happening at all. I go, I just gotta say, it looks really good.
It does. Like, hey, look what we made here.
Look what I should have done weeks ago.
Yes, but now I didn't. I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah.
So that's the start of our weekend. Feel free to tell us about yours at 855-75-CIVIC. That's 855-752-4842. You can call it or text it or use the app or talk to us through social media. 6 o'clock temperatures around the state of Wisconsin this morning. Nobody's in the 30s. You can tell this is the week leading into Memorial Day weekend. It's in Waukesha where Greg is, it's 59. Here on Lake Wissota, it is 56. Hayward's at 60. Park Falls, Hayward's at 60. They were 38 on Friday morning. Park Falls is at 54. Wausau 57. Green Bay 59. La Crosse 61. 57 in Rapids, and Oshkosh 58 in Madison right now. And showers and a little bit of thunderstorm activity kind of moving across the state as well. So, and there's more to come. Looking at one of the TV forecasts here in western Wisconsin, they're saying 2 to 4 inches of rain is yet to fall between tonight and tomorrow, as a stormy system gets set to move through the area. So I'm glad I got the lawn mowed when I did, because Greg and I are going to have to bail again probably before the end of the week, and we'll look to talk to meteorologist Brittany Merlot a little later on and get a look at your forecast. Coming up this morning, we're going to have, now that I know our guests are coming, but the painter is not, Dianne Hesselbein, the state Senate Democratic leader, is going to join us in our second hour to talk about not only the recently completed legislative session, but also the fact that for the elections coming up, there are now Democratic candidates in every contested state Senate race that is up this year, which is not something that happens every year, but with new maps, new districts, new opportunities. She's going to talk a bit about what's coming up in November in all of these various state Senate districts. Meanwhile, the state Republican Party held their convention over the weekend in Appleton. Just a lot of transphobia and homophobia, and a lot of divisive talk in the name of unity. And we'll talk more about that. We'll hear we'll talk about what members of Congress had to say. Although I will say, in terms of political subterfuge, I really liked the Democratic Party of Wisconsin running a mobile billboard around the convention site with Eric Hovde's picture and a new website. The website is erichuvdedoesn'tlikeyou.com, and it just lists all the various groups that he has said negative things about. Let's see, we're hoping to have Dr. Kristen Lyerly on. Salina Heller will be here. She's working on a few different stories for Up North News, and will tell us more about that. We'll talk a bit about Donald Trump's trial on hush money payments to a porn star to cover up an alleged extramarital affair. It was supposed to be one of 2 trials we'd be talking about today. Originally, today was going to be the start of Donald Trump's trial on mishandling of classified documents. Judge Eileen Cannon, a Trump appointee, had originally set today for the trial date, before she eventually put off the trial indefinitely for reasons that range from her inexperience to political expediency to a whole sorts of things in between. Over the weekend, you had more national Republicans, including Florida Senator Marco Rubio on Meet the Press, again refusing to say that they would accept the results of the 2024 election. Even after somebody in Rubio's case talked about accepting the 2020 results back in 2020 and saying, that that's what you do in a democracy, is you accept the will of the voters and you move on. But he can't even bring himself to say what he used to say about the future, at least I guess until he finds out whether he, has made the cut and could be a running mate for Donald Trump. And I mean, that is craven. To want to be president so bad that you're willing to essentially emasculate yourself in the hopes that somebody who nicknamed you Little Marco is going to pick you for the ticket. Who thinks that's going to happen? But if that's what it takes to be a team player, I guess, then that's what we see from Republicans this weekend. In sports, the Brewers were in Houston. The Astros took 2 out of 3 from the Brewers over the weekend, slugging their way to a 9-4 victory over Milwaukee on Sunday. Milwaukee starting pitcher Colin Ray went 4 1/3 innings. He gave up 5 runs on 8 hits and 4 walks. And the Brewers then traveled to Miami for a 3-game set that starts this evening. Joe Ross will be on the mound for the Brewers. In the NBA playoffs, the Indiana Pacers, who took out the Milwaukee Bucks, have advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals. They will take on the Boston Celtics. So it's Indiana, Boston, and then the other half of the NBA's Final Four is all set. It's the Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves, who did not break their fans' hearts with a Game 7 collapse, even though they were down 20 points in the second half in Denver. they stormed all the way back and eliminated the defending champions last night. And so, yeah, your Final Four is Minnesota, Dallas, Indiana, and the Boston Celtics for the rest of the NBA season. And I just can't believe that. I don't like to sound this way about Minnesota sports. I've watched what the sports teams there have done to friends and family over the years, and I'll have my fingers crossed for you guys, but details yet to come. The Los Angeles Times had a column over the weekend. I'm sure it had nothing to do with the timing of the state Republican convention, where, again, Eric Hovde was the man of the hour. But the columnist for the Los Angeles Times talks about, quote, Wisconsin's California candidate is the headline. And it begins Mark Barbarick's column by saying, Eric Hovde has, from the looks of it, had a pretty swell life. The banking executive is a millionaire many times over. He owns an Ocean View mansion in Laguna Beach and was named by the Orange County Business Journal for 3 years running as one of the country's most influential individuals. Yet for more than a decade, Hovde, age 60, has had a hankering to hold political office. And normally this is where we'd insert the long litany of rich folk, Michael Huffington, Al Checky, Meg Whitman among them, who have tried and face-planted in their bid to get elected statewide in California. And so, as we all know by now, Eric Hovde has decided to come back to Wisconsin to take on Tammy Baldwin, who's running for a third term. And, it goes on to say the many ways that folks are continuing to tie Eric Hovde back to California, again, as somebody who would like to have statewide office, can't get it here, but is coming over here. Can't get it over there, I should say, so he's coming over here to look for statewide fortune and fame. And so with that, we'll talk more about the Republican State Convention. We'll unpack some more of the news, all just ahead on a busy Monday morning as we're getting started here on Up North News Radio, live from Lake Wissota, here on the Civic Media Radio Network for this Monday morning, May 20th. I'm Pat Kreitlow.
Come on, Harry, we want to say goodnight to you.
That was Harry Styles on this day 2 years ago, released his third solo album, Harry's House, which debuted at #1 in the U.S. and other countries, including hits like As It Was right there and Late Night Talking. And I bring that all up just to say, I said how proud of myself I was for mowing the lawn, Greg, and, putting my hands on my hips going, I did that.
Yeah.
I know who Harry Styles is. I'm so proud of myself. Might be the first time we've played bumper music from 2022 at 6 o'clock in the morning here.
You know what? No, I disagree with that, Pat. I will say this. Okay. So what I'm about to say, you're going to want to make a joke as possibly an insult. It's not for your age.
Uh-huh.
You know a lot about modern music, modern artists, and I feel like you have an appreciation for them and a respect for them. Whereas a lot of people your age or even younger are like, I don't listen to that pop music, blah, blah, blah. They don't make good music anymore. Yeah, they do. They make amazing music.
This is true. I don't get all of it, you know.
No.
For example, I mentioned when Taylor Swift's album came out, what is it, the Tortured Poets Department, 3-4 weeks ago?
Yeah,
I
got all
listened.
grumpy.
I listened to it all the way through, and it just all sounded so slow and depressing in one setting. Meanwhile, I've heard at least one song on the radio, and again, there's a difference between listening to it in the background versus when it's the only thing on in the radio, and you can hear more of the music. You can hear more of the bass line and things like that. I'm like, okay, I can see why this song is on the radio. You know,
And in 6 months, you're like, have you listened to this record? It's amazing. No, I mean, yeah, not every album has to be, and not every album has to be your favorite either.
no, but I do try. I do try sometimes.
You succeed with flying colors for me.
Oh, thank you. The daily newsletter from Up North News is out for this Monday morning. Christina Laurie puts that together for us, including 27 of the best weekend getaways in the Midwest, according to one survey. The link to the full list is on there. Also, there's an article there about Wisconsin's climate and the one of the currents, weather currents, that is changing Wisconsin weather as a result. All that and more. Sign up for it over at upnorthnewswi.com. Roger notes the passing of an NFL legend. Let's see. Roger puts on Facebook here, Jim Otto. Jim Otto was a legend for the Oakland Raiders. Okay. I mean, you probably have to be older than me to appreciate it, but he was an absolute legend for the Oakland Raiders. Never missed a single game due to injury, played in 210 consecutive games, elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1980. Why, Pat, are we mentioning the passing of an Oakland Raider football player, Jim Otto? Because he was a native of Wausau, Wisconsin. Born January 5th, 1938 in Wausau. He grew up in poverty, even living for a while in a chicken coop with his family, which is where they had to live for a time during the Great Depression. He left and was able to play college football at the University of Miami, where he was a center and a linebacker. He was undrafted by the NFL in 1959 before signing with the Raiders of the new AFL in 1960. And then, of course, became an NFL legend after that. So Wausau, Wisconsin's own, the original Raider, as the team said, Jim Otto, Mr. Raider, died at the age of 86. So we wanted to note his passing as well. Over the weekend, right before the weekend started, there was a joint meeting of the legislature's Assembly Elections Committee and Senate Elections Committee. And one of the topics, it was primarily about voting voting ID, shall we say. And to hear the tone of the testimony and the comments, you would assume that non-citizen voting is a massive problem in this country. Non-citizen voting is not a massive problem in this country. It's not actually much of a problem at all by the numbers, because if you're a non-citizen, you're here to work, you're here to get some money, you're here to send money home, or you're here for safety, you're here for shelter. Who of those folks is going to say, I want to try to influence an election with my one vote, and so I'm going to risk being deported? And yet, as was mentioned over the weekend at the Republican State Convention and in the legislative hearing last week, there is a political party, to read this story from the Associated Press, that is holding urgent news conferences and congressional hearings over the topic. The specter of immigrants voting illegally has erupted into a leading election year talking point for Republicans. Marco Rubio, I mentioned him before on Meet the Press, was also asked about that, how his most recent comments are nothing like what he used to say when he appeared to be a moderate Republican. And yet he went on to classify what's happening now. Here's that word again, invasion. Because, again, without the ability to run on ideas that would actually help American families, you look for villains, you look for scapegoats, you look for things that are going to lead to some kind of a fear factor in the voting republic. And the thing that stuck out for me from watching some of the legislative committee hearing last week were legislators who were talking to members of the Department of Transportation, and I know I've heard the same thing with members of the State Elections Committee, but with the DOT talking about forms of identification and how non-citizens, can either get IDs, or people who are here but not they're documented, but they're not citizens yet, but they can get IDs. And there was so much talk from some of the legislators about, well, we need you, the DOT or the Elections Commission people, we need you to do more, to give information, because I know you're doing your job, they'd say. I understand the law, but people are talking, people are saying, people are asking. I'm looking back at this hearing going, gosh, I wonder why. Who is it that is misleading these people and helping them think that non-citizens are voting in droves? There was a lot of discussion about how you can, the DOT has a database of people, and some of that database does include people that they know are, undocumented residents, and discussing if there was any way to essentially release their information to show that they, so that it would show up on voting rolls that they're here, they're not here legally. And as was noted, this is still personal information. And if you're going to start releasing personal information on somebody because you think they might not be a citizen, what's going to happen when you start accidentally releasing information on people who are citizens? We talked to State Representative Lee Snodgrass last week, and she noted, for example, somebody could have just become a citizen, but if the data at the data centers hasn't caught up with that yet, you're going to get pulled over, and your old license is going to say you're not a citizen, and you're going to get arrested even though you just became a citizen. Why play all this monkey business with people's data and privacy and lives unless you have the massive problem that Republicans say it is, when it is not? It might be better, the time might be spent better talking about your ideas. But when you don't have them, you create scapegoats. Kristen Lyerly joins the conversation next, right after the Midwest Farm Report. You're Up North. I'm Pat Kreitlow.
It's not the same.
What up, Buttercup?
Good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Happy Monday.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
It was so nice. What a beautiful weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Was it as nice on the western side of the state as it was on the eastern side of the state?
It was. So were you biking over the weekend?
I was.
Was it, what kind of an event was it?
No event. I biked to Kaukauna on Friday for a triathlon. Just for my friend did this amazing triathlon.
Okay.
She hosted it for kids. She's a special ed teacher at Kaukauna,
Mm-hmm.
and they do this Breaking Boundaries triathlon where her students have peer mentors, and they do all of the events with peers helping them. It's so cool. The whole community comes out. It's just a blast.
Nice. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. All right. Is it raining over there?
It's going to be in about 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, hopefully your power doesn't go out either. Did you hear at the top how Greg's power went out right before the top of the hour?
No.
I was like, all right, well, I guess we're doing an internet show. But
Oh.
yeah, you popped back up just in time. So that was cool. All right. I'm going to step away for a minute, and we'll talk in a bit.
Okay.
Okay.
I could turn back time. If I could
It's Cher's birthday, ladies and gentlemen. The original is 78 years old today. So welcome back. For those of you watching on Facebook through video or on YouTube or Twitter, you're seeing in our homage to Cher, Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves, all right here. And we'll play that tune a little bit later as Greg Bach joins us along with Kristen Lyerly. And I'm Pat Kreitlaw. And you can all guess who is who. Dr. Lyerly, how are you?
Good morning. I'm so good. I love Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves.
Well, good. Well, then you're going to like this next segment when we do today's history lesson for you here. We started by talking about, taming our wild lawns. Greg and I just having such,
Like
such
manly man.
Oh,
Yeah.
do you need some gardening advice? I'm on it. Let's go.
No,
I'm
we
a
want-
master gardener. I
we-
took a whole class on lawn. Let's go.
Okay. So lawn as a gardening topic. Sure.
Oh, wow. I took a whole class on lawn.
I know. At the time, I was kind of bored with it, but now that I'm in my 50s, I'm fascinated by it. I can't explain it.
No, I can explain it. You're in your 50s. That's exactly what it is. So do you have the best lawn on your street then as a result of all this knowledge?
I try not to get too consumed by my lawn,
Mhm.
but I'm very particular about when it needs to be cut, how long it needs to be cut, when I fertilize, how I do my weeding. It's a whole process.
So that's a yes.
Yes. Maybe. Yeah.
No, that's
Are you the person walking up and down the block going, "Hi, everybody. Oh, it's looking so nice outside. Be really great to get some lawn work done. Oh my gosh."
No.
Okay.
I try to just it's my lawn that I can control. Other people have other things happening in their lives. That's their lawn. And
Mhm.
now with it being no mow may or slow mo may or whatever the other
Slow-mo
slow mo.
may.
Well, the other alternative is like mow it high, because if you don't mow it at all, then it gets too long and that's not healthy for your lawn.
See,
So,
now that
that's
makes
not
more
good.
sense. Is don't drop your blade as far if you've got an adjustable.
What-
If you can adjust that, have a
Okay.
higher lawn.
I'm
Uh-oh.
so confused now.
Now why?
I thought no mow may was good because it helped with pollination. I'm
Yes.
not kidding you, Dr. Lively. My backyard lawn was up to almost my thighs. And you know me, I'm a tall gent. Uh,
So,
and so-
how are you going to cut it? Do you get like a bushwhacker in June and go through it? That's not good.
Did I
for
look
your
up
lawn.
scythes online? I did. No, I just honestly, I told Pat earlier that I had to buy a brand new trimmer
Mhm.
because my old one couldn't handle it. And I just went through and kind of just swiped. And then I went over it at one length, bagged it. And then I went over it with another length and bagged it again. So now it looks great.
I love this idea. And you're right. It's good for the pollinators, but then in June, it becomes bad for the pollinators. So if you really want to be a sustainable pollinator supporter, no mow may isn't maybe the best alternative. Maybe the best alternative is mow your lawn tall, like long, high, but also plant some flowers that encourage pollinators, like, butterfly weed and salvia, things that attract butterflies.
In
and
other
bees.
words, along with everything else you're doing, Greg, you got to become a gardener too. You got.
No, that's not happening.
I would take a class even if I were you. I know somebody
No, I'm not studying lawn.
I know somebody.
studying lawn.
It's fun. I'll come over. We can check your blood pressure and do some gardening together.
Perfect.
All right, we're in great shape here. You did a little. You said did a little biking. You weren't in the triathlon. You were supporting somebody.
I was, yes. So in Kakana, they do this beautiful triathlon called the Breaking Boundaries Triathlon, which is for the special needs kids at the high school. And all the students and teachers come out to support them. They have peer mentors who help them through each of the activities. And the community comes out and cheers and blows bubbles. People are going down the street honking their horns. It is just so heartwarming. My favorite moment was the student athlete who entered the stadium, and as soon as the crowd erupted, he's running towards the big inflatable arch, and he's turning to the crowd and he's like cheering, and they're cheering for him, and he's running at the arch, and the arch, it's windy, the arch collapsed and it fell toward him. And he did not even care. He ran right up to it and he threw it up in the air and ran underneath it. And it was just one of those moments that was like, he didn't even recognize that that was an issue. He was like, I am finishing this triathlon. It is such a beautiful thing. They invited they invited Little Chute and Kimberly athletes to come and participate as well. And man, I just can't express how joyful it was to be able to be a part of it.
That's awesome. That's
Mhm.
wonderful. And you're so close to Appleton. Did you happen to stop by the state Republican convention over the weekend at all?
No, I stayed far away from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure I didn't want to miss
Ron
anything.
Johnson was there.
Yeah, I know, but some of the stuff that was coming out, the resolutions, guys.
The resolutions, the language, the division. There was even some pushback on giving a nomination to Eric Hovde when technically he's not the nominee yet. There is still going to be a primary. So there's going to be so much yet to say about that. But let me instead turn to a newsletter called Abortion Every Day by Jessica Valenti, talking about Harrison Butker's commencement speech at Benedictine College, the Kansas City Chiefs kicker. And as she notes, there's a lot to hate about it, calling birth control unnatural, gay pride is a deadly sin, and of course telling the female graduates that being a wife and mother is their highest calling. But the point that she wanted to make here is that she said, let's be clear about this speech. Butker's remarks weren't fringe or radical; they are the law. He was simply saying out loud what Republicans have already codified, that the women's role in this country is to bear children and support men. Every abortion ban, every new restriction on our ability to access basic care, the more limitations on our rights and freedom, those are the embodiment of smallest men's biggest wishes. And of course, then she goes on to give all of the examples here. And Kristen, that's really a conversation that we've had so often here, is that what we used to call fringe or radical actually is the law in many states and could be in Wisconsin as well, that this is, there's still a lot of work to do. That's what you've been saying since Kansas, codified abortion rights post Dobbs, was that was great, but there's a lot of work to do.
There's a lot of work to do, and it still is the law. So remember, we still do have an 1849 abortion ban that has been declared unenforceable in Dane County Circuit Court, but it's been appealed. So it's working its way up and will likely be taken up by the Supreme Court. And in the meantime, although we've restored abortion care in Madison and Milwaukee and Sheboygan, most of the state is not providing this kind of care. And that means that people who have very complicated pregnancies in places like Green Bay and Wausau are not getting the care that they need. So yeah, this is the law and it needs to change, and it will change. I believe it will change, but it's going to require all of us to step up and use our voices and let our leaders know that what they are doing is not aligned with what we believe to be the truth and what we need to see in the world.
Well, but to do that involves, again, something that's still 5.5 months away, and the fatigue that is going to set in, with voters, and how you counter that. Now, as a candidate for Congress yourself in the 8th district, I mean, you've already started doing events, but you're still talking by and large to people who are kind of engaged in the process in one form or another.
Yeah, but Pat, don't forget, fatigue is real.
Yeah.
But for those of us who feel strongly about abortion rights, we've been battling this forever.
Mm-hmm.
For my entire life, we couldn't pass the Equal Rights Amendment. We still haven't passed it. Minnesota did last week, but we still have not passed it as a country, which, if you've ever read the text of the Equal Rights Amendment, it's very simple. This is not a tricky, complicated piece of legislation. It essentially just means women are equal, So this is a battle that we have been fighting my entire life. And I think we finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. We will not be tired. And in fact, I believe we are going to continue to gain energy and gain momentum as we approach November, because we recognize how important this election is.
I'm recalling now from the Equal Rights Amendment debate at the state level, which was going on during my, childhood and teen years.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the one thing that was always said? Well, if we pass this, then, women have to go to war too. Women have to be on the front lines. And so it didn't pass. So there is no equal rights amendment for women. And look what happened. Women are serving in war zones. Women are paying the ultimate sacrifice, serving.
And look
their
where our
country.
country is now.
Yeah.
And women can still be women. Women can still be feminine. It doesn't take away from any part of my ability to be a woman or a mom and fulfill that role, or your ability to be a man or a husband, or the roles that you fulfill in your life. We can all be better. It's this fear and division that are fostered. It's the fear and division that we saw at the Republican convention with some of the resolutions that they passed. Enough of the fear and division. We are all struggling right now. When you hear people talk about the economy, you hear people talk about freedom. Everybody is having a hard time right now. And the only way to solve these problems is to actually solve the problems, not continue to divide.
But instead, we hear, again, more. We talked in the last half hour about, Marco Rubio hedging on whether he'd accept the election results, but Ron Johnson did the same thing in the Appleton area. The Cap Times writes that Ron Johnson hedged Saturday on whether he would commit to accepting the results of the November election, echoing former President Trump's warning he'll reject the outcome if he believes it is not honest. It just shows that still there is a large sector of Republican officials and candidates, as I said in the legislative hearing from a few days ago, that will continue to just try to say the words that say, well, I'm not saying I'm against democracy. I'm just not saying, I'm saying people are saying that there's a problem with the election. And God, you're going to hear so much of this over the next 5 months, Kristen. You really are.
I just can't get that picture of Ron Johnson walking in front of the Capitol with his phone, pretending that he was taking a call because he didn't want to answer the reporter's question. Like, just tell the truth.
He's like, I've got a call, and the reporter rightfully says, "No, you don't," because he can see the screen. He doesn't have a call.
Well, the thing too is you're talking about that, like, it's sowing those like small doubts. It's not like, you've got Donald Trump standing on a podium screaming and yelling about the 2020 election, but then you have Eric Hovde and Ron Johnson, and it was Van Wangard from Racine doing the thing of like, well, 2020 happened, and we believe that the election's over, but were there problems? Yeah, there were problems, and then they just sprinkle them in. They're not yelling. They're just. And that's why, and there was an article we talked about a couple months ago, is the amount of people who now believe the 2020 election was tampered with has risen. Mm-hmm. It's people haven't just, let it go. They know, because they hear those small little like, oh, well, there were ballot dumps, and there were, illegal people voting in California. I don't know about that, but that's what they say was happening. And that's the problem.
And a lot of it was said directly from the podium in Appleton over the weekend, to Republicans who will then go back to their communities and they will spread that around. And
that is not what people who typically vote Republican, the conservatives in this area especially, that does not reflect who they are. That does not reflect what they believe. The Republican leadership has gotten so far to the right. The things that they're saying and that they're doing are inconsistent with what the people want from them. And that's why I'm going to win this race for Congress, because they are not aligned with what the people believe and what the people want to hear. We've got to right this country, and this November, we're going to do it.
And I have to note just one thing. You mentioned Trump speaking over the weekend in St. Paul. Mm-hmm. And at one point, he leaned rather heavily on the podium, and it tipped over. And he tried to blame the workers, at the event. If President Biden had kind of leaned too heavily on a podium and it tilted, if he'd paused for 30 seconds like Trump did at one point during the speech, you'd be hearing nonstop about that this morning. The fact that I had to tell you about this in a few seconds this morning tells you again why we do so much about media coverage every Friday morning with Mark Jacob. Kristen is joined by Salina Heller with today's history lesson next. You're up north. Turn back down.
I didn't know that about the podium. I heard him say twice that he won Minnesota
Yeah.
in 2016 and 2020, which clearly he didn't. There wasn't even. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
He just creates his own reality.
Yep.
And it hurts people, Pat. It makes me crazy.
I know. People who would get hurt believe it, but again, we've had that with snake oil salesmen and, evangelists and, politicians forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. On the upside,
Yes.
we got some great coverage on Fox 11.
I saw that.
It was
Yes.
so good, and it was so reflective of what's really happening and all the good work that's happening together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. As mentioned earlier, Cher turns 78 today. I'm pretty sure that Cheryl Sarkeesian, born in El Centro, California, would now be the first person to tell you that's a damn lie that she's 38. And, bless her for it. Cher teamed up with Sonny Bono in 1964. They first recorded as Caesar and Cleo before changing it to Sonny and Cher the next year. And then they hit it big with I Got You, Babe. And she decided to stick with Cher. Probably a good move on her part. So happy birthday to Cher. Up North News resident diva Salina Heller joins us now from Eau Claire.
Diva.
Diva.
Whoa.
Whoa.
All right, fine. I'm the diva.
No,
that's all right. I didn't want to have to.
It's funny when you call Selena a diva, I take on a totally a one version. I'm like a diva, just amazing. When you used to call yourself a diva, Pat, I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I also get called Beyonce for my many costume changes throughout the course of a day. There's one outfit for radio, then I'll put on something else when I'm doing a TikTok video, then I'll put something nice on when I'm recording an interview for the next day's show, and it's like, yeah, it's guilty. Ms. Heller, you do not have lawn work mastery skills that we have to talk about, do you? Taming our lawns has been the theme this morning so far.
I was hearing I want to deal with grubs in my lawn.
Grubs?
Ooh.
Oh, Master Gardener Kristen Lyerly can help you with that one.
I don't know if you know this, Selena, but Dr. Lyerly studied lawn.
Well,
Yeah.
I had the same class from the Master Gardener. Yeah.
Oh, look at this.
Of course.
Wow.
Okay. Born this day in 1944 was the late Joe Cocker.
Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I will try not to sing out of key. Yeah. Oh, baby, how
He has such a distinct
Oh, yeah.
stage presence.
Very much.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. Go-Go's guitarist Jane Weedland is 66 years old today.
Wisconsinite.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Nick Hayward of Haircut 100 is 63 today. Busta
Are we going to
Rhymes
play
is-
Love Plus One?
I had it on there, and then decisions had to be made. So, yeah.
Would you say Haircut 100 had to get cut?
Oh.
The guy who you're the
should
master
try.
gardener, he's the barber over here, and he got a kick out of the Haircut 100 joke.
I should have said trimmed.
Busta Rhymes is 52 today. Rachel Platten from Fight Song fame is 33 years old today. Let's see. Oh, you know what, Craig? Did you click on the song link or the Shindig link?
I got both of them because I'm that kind of guy.
Oh, well, we're just going to use the Shindig link. The Rolling Stones debuted their latest song on this day in 1965 on the American variety show Shindig. Here's how it sounded when they talked about it later.
Here's a #1 national hit song that was heard for the first time in the world right here on Shindig. And here are the guys who made it famous, the Rolling Stones.
Wouldn't it be fun if we could do our radio show together? Now, here, time for the news here, kids. And coming up next is going to be Civic Media News Director Terry Bell.
Donald
We
Trump
could.
was in St. Paul, Minnesota, and fell off a podium this week. Hey!
Conversely, Shakespeare's sonnets were first published in London on this day in 1609. On this day in 1873, Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis received a U.S. patent for blue jeans with copper rivets. And on this day in 1978, the number one song was by Paul McCartney and Wings.
We can do it, just me and you, and a little love.
Speaking of Wings, Charles Lindbergh took off from Paris on this day, or took off for Paris on this day in 1927. Left from Roosevelt Field in Long Island aboard the Spirit of St. Louis, the first nonstop solo flight across the Atlantic. It took him 33 and a half hours. I don't know if this was coincidence or by design, but 5 years later, on this day in 1932, Amelia Earhart took off from Newfoundland to begin the world's first solo nonstop flight across the Atlantic by a female pilot. She landed in Ireland the next day. Do we know?
How fast is that plane going? 33 hours?
Yeah. It's,
Drive to Paris from New York in less time. That includes a boat.
Yeah. Let's see. One more song of note on this day in 1989. The number one hit was by Paula Abdul, the title track to her debut album.
Hey, baby, you got to remember.
If you are not on Facebook and you cannot see Greg, you just missed one of the most beautiful moments of the show.
Salina was digging on it too. I mean, yeah.
I like the song.
I was gonna say I don't remember the product anymore, but Paula Abdul was hawking something a year or two ago, and doing a side-by-side comparison of her dance moves now compared to 30 plus years ago, and I mean, still got it. Again, if you've got flexibility or athletic prowess or can touch your toes, never stop practicing is what I want to say, because once you stop, it ain't coming back.
That whole thing just felt like an attack, Patrick.
When we go off the air, we're all doing yoga.
No, not anymore. No.
Just no.
Yeah, just I tried to pick up a quarter in the grocery store parking lot over the weekend, and that was embarrassing enough. Today, it's my New Year's resolution is to stop making noises when I do that. I go, oof, I'm like, ugh. Today is National Band Directors Day. Any music band folks here? Anybody at all? No?
Yep.
Greg? Yes.
Greg.
Okay.
Yep.
Greg
I was
was.
in a band.
You were a gopher.
I was in a marching band.
I know. I might have set you up for that. So Band Directors Day. Happy day to you. This is Brain Injury Survivors Day, Food Allergy Awareness Day. Any food allergies that we need to avoid when we finally get someday we're going to get all of us in the same room. I firmly believe that.
I'm not allergic to anything, and I will eat anything.
Okay.
That should be on your yard sign. I'm allergic to nothing. I will eat everything. Vote for
I love
me.
food.
Rejected campaign slogans for 100, Alex. Today is National Strawberry Picking Day, Quiche Lorraine Day.
It's too early for strawberries.
That's what I said. I don't
They're
know.
blooming.
Yes. This is High Heels Day.
No.
No.
No, Salina? No. High Heels Day?
She doesn't mind. She'll
Amanda's
wear
hat.
heels.
Amanda's
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm fine with high heels. Like,
Yeah. Okay. This is Women in Aerospace Day, and this is World Bees Day. So again, if you're taking care of your pollinators,
Yeah.
this is a special day for you.
Plant some butterfly weed.
Yeah. When we continue with Up North News Radio, Salina Heller always talks about some of the stories that she's covering for us that you can read over at upnorthnewswi.com. And she's going to talk about health insurance coverage for IVF. So we're going to ask Dr. Lyerly to hang around for a couple of extra minutes there. And we'll have that and much more from Salina next. You're Up North. And yes, I once again had 5920 on the brain instead of 5850. So.
Time to get up and touch your toes, everybody.
The hell I am.
You can do yoga. Just sit in your chair and sit up, and then you push
that
your
hurt
chest
something right
out.
there.
This is cat cow, and then you bend over,
and then something makes a noise, and then I can't move for the rest
This
of
is
the day.
good for you. This is
For
good
the record,
you.
I do love yoga. I love yoga, and
Yeah.
I did yoga lattes for a summer, and those kicked my butt. I would love to get back into yoga. It's just finding the time. I just like
Same.
such an excuse, but it's true. I just
Guys,
don't.
5 minutes. 5 minutes a day.
I know.
5. Don't tell me you don't have 5.
Okay. All right.
She's kind of a pest that way, isn't she?
My gosh.
Look at Tony. Who the hell I am. I've never related to Pat so much.
Come on, Tony. Let's go.
Very adamant this morning.
That's what, you know what? That's what Kristen, through you can be on her campaign YouTube page, and we'll put it here too, is, 5-minute morning yoga with Kristen before you start the day.
I mean, it's not pretty, but it works.
Oh, look, Google signed me out. Thanks, Google.
Yeah, Google signed me. Did you all see that during that last segment?
The flash?
The flashing on my side. Although nothing, you didn't lose me. That happened twice before when we were on live stream, like before the show started this morning.
Wow.
Like my power went out for a millisecond, but it knocked me out, and I had to come back all the way up.
Oh boy.
Technology is well.
Mm-hmm.
Technology can go to hell.
Wow.
I don't know.
I have a funny.
Go ahead, Kristen.
I was going to say I have a funny cat story.
I was just going to ask if the damn cat still had the little ponytail.
Is it a story about a cat that's funny, or is it a cat story that'll make us laugh?
Well, I have new neighbors.
Yeah.
And so they were sitting out on the deck last night, and I walked over and was chatting with them. And one of my cats ran over. I have cats that are inside outside. And one of my cats ran over and clearly had been there before. And we got into this conversation about how sometimes my cats will disappear for days at a time. And we have a theory that they have a second home. And the people who used to live next door were very quiet. They didn't really communicate. They never really came outside. So when we were sitting there on the deck talking, my cat walked over and started looking in their house. And when he opened the door, the cat ran right inside the house. And now I'm wondering if my cat used to actually vacation next door at the neighbor's house. Luckily, the new neighbors like cats. So it seems like there might be some cat sharing that's happening in the neighborhood now.
Cat sharing.
It's a cat
Any
off.
chance, is one of the cats' names Charles Kuralt by chance?
No,
Okay.
no, that's
All right,
not.
Okay. Wasn't sure if this was a polygamy situation here.
I was gonna say it's like a 1950s salesman, like I got a family in Iowa too. Sorry.
I looked like the milkman. What's a milkman?
I'm dropping out for a second. I'm just gonna do something real quick.
Okay.
I have a milkman,
But
but it doesn't look like my cat.
your boys all look the same. Yeah,
Oh boy.
We really do get milk delivered. It's really pretty cool. And you can get it delivered. They have like a little box like we used to have when I was a kid growing up.
Wow.
Although I just
Glass bottles.
Glass bottles.
wow.
The milk, I don't know. Maybe it's psychological. It tastes different.
Sherry was on the farm this weekend with her, visiting her parents and her brother and sister-in-law. They have chickens, a couple of chickens, and she brought back 2 cartons of eggs. And I love a fried egg in the morning, and there's such a difference. Eggs and bacon on the farm, nothing like it. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, had those this morning for the first time, and I was just like, oh yeah, this is the good stuff right here. So Salina, we got the IVF one. Greg, you've got that over there, I assume, and Dropbox. It got over there, right? Oh wait, he can't hear me. Let me go look at Dropbox.
He's concentrating hard though.
He does, doesn't he? Yep. Okay. It's allegedly says it's all there, so that's good. There we go. Yeah, he or she was on the farm, and I went to Madison, and
Yeah, you
it was
did.
really nice. Yeah,
Hanging out with your high school friend?
college friend. Yep. Yeah,
Fun.
that was really nice. Got to go see the Minocqua Tap Room. What was the other thing I was going to mention?
All right.
I don't know. Oh, Greg's back now.
I'm back.
All right.
I was just cutting your Tuesday promo.
Oh, okay. And then you've got the Hospital one, I think we're going to do both the hospital ones here. You're going to have details on what Jeff Smith had to say. And then we'll save Emery. We'll let Kristen go at 7:20, and we'll do the school principal one at 7:20. So
Okay.
All right, that's a plan.
And I have them in order of IVF, citizen action, and
Yes.
then school principal. Okay, great.
Yep. All right.
Wait, Emery?
Yeah.
It's spelled Emmarie?
Yes.
Oh, fun. I just thought it was like Emery as an emery board.
I hear that from Emory. And,
mhm. Emma was my grandma, and Marie is my middle name. So
and rather than Emma Marie, it's
and
Emery.
everyone calls her that.
Everyone calls her
I
Emma
don't. I
Marie.
call her Emery.
Mary.
Okay.
You.
I found out that my great-great-grandfather's name was Wallington. That's pretty cool.
Wallington?
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna
Polish.
stick. Let me just get that up in there. Wallington.
His nickname was Valentine, probably because people in America were like, "What does that mean? What is that word?" Just call him Valentine.
Valentine.
Wallington.
Did it have like
T-O-N? T-I-N?
Wallentine. Wallington.
Okay.
Did it
Maybe
have
it may have
like
been
an
Wallentine.
ethnic-y kind of
Watch it.
No. Like, was it said in a certain dialect?
I couldn't tell you. He had been dead long before I was born.
Was he an immigrant, or did he?
Yeah, he was from Poland. He and his wife were born in Poland. My great-great-grandmother.
I would love to hear how that's said with a Polish accent.
Greg and I are probably cousins. So
Probably. Yeah.
all right, here we go.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Good morning and welcome back. It's 7:06. Nice to have you here on this Monday morning, May 20th, 2024, here on Up North News Radio, where coming up at the bottom of the hour, we will talk with State Senate Democratic leader Dianne Hesselbein. We'll look back, we'll look forward. We'll look back at the legislative session recently concluded, things that got done, things that didn't get done. Spoiler alert, there's a whole lot of things that didn't get done. But looking ahead, she'll also talk about the new maps, the new state Senate districts, and whether she has found candidates for every one of those races yet. So that's coming up. Civic Media News Director Terry Bell is on the way as well. Tomorrow on the program, Matt Rothschild, who had recently retired from Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, but like so many other people in retirement, you get bored. You want to stay busy. You still have things to do. You still have gifts to give. So he's going to talk about what he's doing and how it involves civic media. So tune in for that. In the meantime, for those of you watching on Facebook, I mean, look at this mob that we have here today. We have in Waukesha, we have Gregory Wallington Bachmeister. We have Dr. Kristen Lyerly in Green Bay, Salina Heller in Eau Claire, and from the heart of Wisconsin, here's meteorologist Brittany Merlot to talk about the rain going through, and apparently that rain bucket's going to get a workout over the next couple of days here. Brittany, good morning.
Good morning. It sure is. This is just the beginning here this morning, but I know in central Wisconsin, we're already waking up to 1/4 of an inch to a lot of places, even in south central Wisconsin, already getting 1/2 inch to nearly an inch of rain already. And like I said, this is just the beginning. So this is the warm front moving through right now. Temperatures, don't get fooled. They're not going to be nice and 80s anymore. We're actually going to only climb to the mid to upper 60s to some low 70s today. It's going to stay cloudy. It's going to stay dreary too. Now, northwest Wisconsin, you're going to start to see some of this rain ease by the afternoon and kind of wind down. Southern Wisconsin, though, especially southeast Wisconsin, by this afternoon and evening, now your severe weather threat is going to roll in. You are right now in a slight to marginal risk down for the southern half of the state this evening. Now, some storms could be strong. We could look at those large hail and then some heavy downpours and also some gusty winds. Now, in terms of rain totals today, we're still looking at another 1/2 inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch, pushing an inch into some of those places into the southern parts of the state today. So some localized flooding is definitely a concern. And that increases through tomorrow because another system hits us tomorrow. And that one's packing an even stronger punch with much more likeliness of severe weather coming out of that one tomorrow night. So this is round 1 of 2. As we go through the next 2 days, you're going to need that umbrella. That's for sure. And stay weather savvy.
I sense that the best way to stay weather savvy would be to stay tuned to this Civic Media radio station.
Absolutely.
I think you
Nice,
you
Pat.
got this. That's
Yeah.
just fine. Rob says 5 awesome people on the screen this morning. Thank you, Rob. We appreciate that. Where he says, "Good morning from Tigerton. Rain in 54." He got 4 yard mowing jobs done in Tigerton yesterday, and asked for Jane Whelan's birthday today. My favorite go-go song is Vacation from 1982. Love jamming to that song. The weekend was awesome weather-wise. Thank you, Rob. We appreciate that. Also in the mailbag today, Roger says, "It boggles my mind how time flies. Gildner Radner passed away 35 years ago today."
Wow.
That is really something. Let's see. Alicia Saunders, our friend, writes in to say it was a great weekend getting out and connecting with voters. Alicia's running for Senate or Assembly?
Assembly District 2, my district.
Assembly District 2. Okay.
Yeah.
During the break, Kristen offered to do a yoga class for all of us to help with stretchiness.
And could I
Pat
maybe
turned it down heartily.
I did, to which Tony responds, Pat's response of "the hell I am." Never related to Pat so much. And Roger chimes in, "Second to that, Tony." So we've got a very active crew commenting on Facebook and YouTube this
Wait
morning.
a minute. What if we could get the soothing sounds of Brittany Merlot to call it out?
Oh, well now we're changing things, because
What am I in for?
You're
Yoga.
going to be doing the yoga
Ooh.
calls, you and that melting butter voice,
And here's the best part, Brittany. You don't have to do a stitch of yoga. All you have to do is sit there and tell us what to do. Be like,
Yes, you just tell us all what to do.
downward facing
I'm in.
dog.
Yes.
You know what?
And
I've done
the
puppy
moisture is
yoga.
Puppy yoga?
Yeah,
Is that
how about
like
something
goat
like
yoga?
that?
Yes.
No, I don't want anything that can relieve itself on me when it's, while I'm trying to do my downward dog thing.
There was
And it
a lot
does
of
its
that.
dog leg thing. If you know what I mean?
Oh, these puppies just went
Any reason to
everywhere.
not do yoga, Pat? You're just finding any reason not to do it. It's just Brittany will give us the poses and then be like, and now go into warrior pose. Moisture will be up 70% this weekend with a hard heavy rain coming through the northwest.
As long as she can include it with play-by-play, she'll also be, and Pat's knees gave out and he just face planted on the mat.
I can do that.
Yeah, I think you'd be great. Brittany, thank you so much. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
day.
You too.
All right. Again, you can reach us through text or by phone and let us know whether we should be doing yoga or not on the radio. Call or text us at 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. You can use the Civic Media app or you can send us an email, radio@UpNorthNewsWI.com. And for folks wondering, why did you introduce Greg earlier? Is Gregory Wallentin Bach? Wallentin was
Bachmeister, you called me actually.
I did. I put
I like
the full. I am sure the full Polish name is Bachmeister, but I mean,
Meister's not Polish.
it's close. It's next door. You could be
Bachski.
the Burgermeister.
My good. I should be offended.
Wallentin is a great grandfather. You said
My great-great-grandfather. on
great
my
great
father's
grandfather.
side. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's a really, I won't go deep into the story, but we were looking to see if a family member had passed away, and I looked online looking for obituaries, and my father's obituary came up, and it also came up with a website called findagrave.com. This is not a joke.
No,
It's not-
I've seen
yep.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just looked up my father's website or the page on there, and it connects you also to his relatives who have passed away. So I looked at my grandparents, and then I looked at my great grandparents, and then my great great grandparents were on there as well. And I found out, because I've always wondered where my family comes from. We don't have any stories of coming to America. We've been here, I guess, for a long time. And I found out that just at least one set of great great grandparents were born in Poland.
Mhm.
And so Wallentin Jaworski was his name. And I'm not kidding you. Her name was Annie Borsky. That's right, folks. Her name was Annie Borsky Jaworski. So
Annie Jaworski.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing. Did you happen to find out what part of Poland?
well, actually, so this is where I kind of fail a little bit. The
You don't fail. The information does.
well, no, it's my the fact that I can't pronounce Polish words.
Oh, that's understandable.
It says it says, if I'm not mistaken here, if it's correct, they were born in Poland, but it gets you to like Poland, the county, and I think even the village, and the words are like, I cannot do them. I can't. It's like lots of Z's next to O's and E's.
Look, mine goes back to the Pingles and the Snazas. Yes, my grandmother's birth name was Albina Snaza, and her family was from a town called Zielona Góra, Poland. And others were from Swidwind, and there's all kinds of fun to be had with genealogy.
I'm trying to look it up because I want to see if you can pronounce it.
Oh,
my grandparents were from Koblenz, and all the lines have changed because think about what has happened in Europe in the last.
That's why I said that. It's like you're in Poland. Nope. Now you're in Germany. No. Now you're in Poland. No. Now you're in Germany. So
I am okay. Here we go. I'm going to put. It won't let me copy it. Oh well. Gnizo Poet. Yeah, that word's not happening.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean. But it's really cool, and there's a gentleman who put in on the page about a bunch of information about him that I didn't know. I never knew. I'm very excited.
Cool.
I want to email and be like, "Hi, we're related. Tell me more."
All of this sharing is so neat. So if you do like an ancestry or one of those spit tests, it will actually plug you into, depending on the level of privacy that you're interested in, it'll plug you into your whole family tree. So you can then just go online and the whole thing just unfolds in front of you.
I was hoping that would happen with mine because there's a lot of blank space on our family tree for various reasons, and came back and there were still about as many strange limbs as ever. So I'm starting to think I might have been a lab experiment, but we'll keep working on it. But I was just glad to hear where Wallington came from.
Yeah.
So before we let Kristen go, Salina's working on a couple of different stories here. We've been talking about health insurance coverage for IVF. IVF under threat as much as ever now because of the political right wing. And Salina, what's different or what's unique about Wisconsin when it comes to health insurance coverage of IVF?
Well, we don't have any. Nationally, 21 states have passed fertility insurance coverage laws, and 14 include IVF coverage. Wisconsin doesn't have that. So if you want to have fertility treatments or IVF, you're kind of out of luck. It's kind of a hefty price tag, but over the years, Governor Shoney Evers tried to get it in the budget, and that didn't happen. And then last session, Kel DeRoy's and Jody Emerson tried to have a Building Families Act, and it got tabled. Excuse me, but Chris and Rachel Hahn of Elk Mound are a couple of the parents who over a lot of years had to go through infertility treatments and IVF in order to have a family. And here is Rachel.
It is an expensive choice. I mean, for us, everything with IVF was out of pocket, everything for infertility leading up to our son and after our son here in Eau Claire was out of pocket. Insurance covered nothing. So, you know, for us, family was our priority, and we had to make a choice. You know, do we buy a new car? Do we work on our house? Or do we try and have children?
And that's the kind of choice, Kristen, that I'm sure you have patients facing repeatedly.
Infertility is a medical problem. And in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of many people who are wanting to start families, people who support families, they would agree that insurance should cover infertility treatment.
When we come back after the break, we're going to hear from State Senator Jeff Smith. He was part of an event along with Citizen Action, and Salina caught up with him. As you know, in the Chippewa Valley, a couple of hospitals were abruptly put out of business. And so hear what he and Citizen Action have to say about maybe improving hospital corporate oversight. We've got that and more coming up on Up North News Radio in just a bit, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. All right, we're clear. Kristen, you want to hang around for the hospital oversight, or do you want to get a move on?
I'm happy to stick around for that part.
Stick around then.
Stick around.
All right. Salina, did you have much more on the health insurance, or can we jump right into the hospital? Okay. Sounds groovy.
It's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So frustrating for these families who just want to have a family.
All right. So then we've got school principal. Okay.
Scanning through the bathroom window.
Joe Cocker was born 80 years ago today. Passed away 10 years ago. Honor him today on this May 20th, 2024. Dr. Kristen Lyerly, Salina Heller, Greg Bach, Pat Kreitlow, all here on Up North News Radio for this Monday morning. Before the break, Salina was talking about health insurance and the lack of coverage for IVF, and in another area related to healthcare, where again we heard for a generation or two that the answer to healthcare's challenges and woes would be to unleash market forces, and if hospitals could just run more like a business, everything would be better. And as we found out with that and so many other things, no, that's really good for some profits. It's good for some shareholders, but not really good for patients. Government is not a business. Healthcare, one could argue, not necessarily a business when we're talking about life or death matters here. And so when you had a corporation like HSHS suddenly decide to close up 2 hospitals in western Wisconsin, Sacred Heart in Eau Claire and St. Joe's in Chippewa Falls, Salina, it got folks at Citizen Action and elected officials like State Senator Jeff Smith wondering if maybe some of if there aren't other ways for our elected officials to help watch out for the collective healthcare quality of the Chippewa Valley and other places.
Right. So they all got together last Friday to talk about it, kind of looked at the causes of what is happening. And so they had Dr. Robert Craig from Citizen Action, Annie Ippel, who is a nurse from the Ellie Phillips Libertas Treatment Center, one of the places that shut down a couple of months ago with the hospitals, and David Peterson, who is also a nurse from Ellie Phillips Libertas Center, and a couple of other people. And they just talked about what's happening in all of these, and we don't want this to happen again with all of these closures. And Senator Jeff Smith was there, and he talked about there's no oversight, there's no regulations for these hospitals. So he kind of wanted to get that discussion going, and so this is Senator Jeff Smith.
What happened in Eau Claire in the Chippewa Valley of hospital closures was a warning sign of a system that's broken. And so we need to look at the greater system and how we can avoid having this happen again and bring healthcare back to an affordable place that is accessible to everybody.
Well, that would be nice. And, when they announced this event was going to be happening, my first thought was, geez, I wonder if they're going to advocate for bringing back like the old hospital rate setting commission that you used to have at the state level, the certificate of need, so that you didn't have over construction. And trust me, as somebody, whose wife is a physician, so I hear a lot about healthcare, know a lot about how you can overregulate something, you can make something onerous. But, that lack of oversight is an important point from Senator Smith. And I wonder, Dr. Lyerly, when you hear that and hear about the closures and, corporate decisions that are made, what kinds of challenges do you think can be addressed at either the state or the congressional level?
It is so complex. This is such a complex issue. And I think most Americans would agree that our healthcare system is fundamentally broken. people can't afford care. Many people are skipping care. They're cutting pills. They're not going in to receive subsequent care. I've had patients who have an abnormal finding on a mammogram, which is covered because preventive care is paid for with Obamacare. But if they have to have additional imaging, that's not paid for. And they just don't, they want to ride it out. They don't want to get that additional imaging to find out if they actually have breast cancer because they can't afford it. This is not healthcare. This is a for-profit industry. And frankly, if we are really trying to take care of people, it needs to change.
Yes, very much so. So we'll, again, Citizen Action talking about that. Did they, Salina, make any other specific suggestions as part of their event, or it's just simply called for beginning the discussions on better oversight?
Mostly beginning in the discussion, and Senator Smith said that, he tried to bring that up and wanted it a formal discussion in the legislature, and then that kind of got pushed away. So that discussion, he said, is going to now change to his office and then go from there, and then whatever comes for next session.
Sure. And as noted by Tony, a comment on YouTube, my wife commented, it's amazing that hospitals were run better when the medical staff ran them versus big companies with all their quote unquote management skills, which I think gets back to Kristen's point just perfectly. Now, one more story from Salina that she's been working on. And we heard from little Emery lately about teachers and the work that they do and what's it take to be a teacher and do we appreciate them enough. And the junior reporter for Up North News was busy again, this time doing one of those 60 Minutes worthy interviews on the swing set with her principal. Tell us more about that.
This one was in the school. There's a different one, more serious questions outside on the swing set.
Okay. All right. So tell us more about so the subject is principals.
Yes. What's it take to be a principal? So yes, Emery talked to Mr. Ben Dahlman, her principal in Eau Claire, and Mr. Dahlman has been in the Eau Claire Area School District for 24 years and a principal at his school for the last 9.
What's something that people don't know about your job?
One thing most people don't know, I don't like the word boss. I feel like just the word boss kind of means like you're bossing people around, and that's not what it is to be a principal. So I think a lot of our great teachers went into teaching not to boss kids around all day, but to help kids and work with kids. And same thing for me. I think that the most important part of my job is helping teachers and staff members and kids and families.
What do you wish you could do more of in your job?
I wish, because there's a lot of paperwork with my job and a lot of emails, I wish there was less paperwork and fewer emails so I could work with kids more, because that's really what I enjoy the most.
What's your favorite thing about being a principal?
A big part of my job is working with the grown-ups in our building. My favorite part is working with the kids.
Oh, of course. Look at that. He just nailed it all.
She's so cute.
What I like is that on the video version, which we'll be posting on the Up North News social media sites, you see that she's written the questions out in her notebook, her reporter notebook. And I would just like to see some kind of an outtake, where she turns the page. Then the next one is, how much money do you make? And then watch him kind of or some other question.
I want to see like, what do you say to the allegations of corruption within the education system in Wisconsin? Why will our leaders not fund us?
Oh my goodness.
It's not that you're not doing your best, Salina, but if you're going to be training the journalists of tomorrow, we've got to get to some of those hard-hitting questions as well.
We'll try that next
Get
time.
one more year of cutesy, Salina. Hard-hitting news.
After that,
this is the strategy, kind of, come in a little.
If that girl doesn't have a Peabody this time next year, I don't know. We're going to have to. Kristen, raising 4 boys. You got any good stories from principals who either admired the boys or called you in once or twice and said, we got problems with this one?
Nope.
Oh,
I got no good stories.
Nope.
I have no stories. To be clear.
That's okay.
Good or bad.
That's okay. Coming up Thursday on Women in Wisconsin, powered by Motherhood for Good, we are talking to Assembly Democratic leader Greta Neubauer. And coming up next, we're talking to State Senate Democratic leader Dianne Hesselbein. Kristen, thank you so much. Have a great day and a good week.
Thanks,
Salina,
guys.
you as well.
Well, thank you. You too.
We'll have our discussion with Senator Hesselbein coming up next. You're Up North.
Less Joe Cocker, more vacation.
More like the Go-Go's vacation?
All I ever wanted, vacation. This is for you, Rob. Tried to get away, vacation. Everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Can I cut her mic? Seriously.
Isn't
I'm just kidding.
she from Waukesha? She's from a
don't
Milwaukee
think she's-
suburb. Maybe
I don't think she's-
Wauwatosa.
What's remind me the name?
Jane Weedland.
Jane Weedland.
Jane
Weedlin.
She was born
Wauwatosa.
in Oconomowoc.
Oconomowoc.
I knew it wasn't Waukesha proper, and I knew it wasn't Milwaukee. But yeah, she's born in Oconomowoc.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There we go.
You're welcome.
There you go.
Thank you.
And Pat, I put that link of my grandfather's birthplace. If you can pronounce it, you're great.
Okay. All right.
Good
That's
morning.
fine. All right. Senator Hesselbein, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, good. We were just ushering off Dr. Lyerly here and Salina Heller. I don't know if you've met, but
I've known Kristen for years. She's our go-to.
Yeah, girl. We're
How are
doing
you?
the great work up here, and we are so excited about our candidates.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
good.
we're excited about you, our candidates. So
Ah.
great to be working with you in this way.
Team
Mhm.
effort.
You bet.
Team
All right,
effort.
ladies. Have a fantastic day.
Happy Monday.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
All right. So Dianne, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
All right.
You are an early bird.
Yeah, we got the early shift here. But somebody's got to do it, and
That's
so
right.
it may as well be the old guy who can wake up early anyway. All right.
I love it.
So the plan here was a little looking back, looking ahead. You're familiar with the looking back, what things that did get done, if any, what things didn't get done, and where the shortcomings lie. And then we'll pivot over to looking ahead and the new lines and the candidates and the themes. So
Love it.
all good. All right. Let's coming up in 2 minutes and 45 seconds, kind of a longer break, but now that I know you're there and look good, I'm going to tuck you back in the waiting room, go fill my coffee, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
On a Sunday afternoon, really couldn't get away too soon. I can't imagine anything that's better. The world is ours whenever we're together. There ain't a place I like to be instead of moving.
Welcome back, or at least I hope it's a welcome back at 7:35 now on this Monday morning, May 20th, as the power had gone out over here. Greg, it happened to you right before 6, and it happened to me right before coming back from this break.
I saw the no anything on the screen. I'm like, oh no.
I had gone to fill my coffee cup. I come back and I see a black screen where my face is supposed to be, and it was like, ruh-roh. And
I just heard someone in my head, someone going, vamp. I'm like, you guys want to talk about guitars?
I will tell you that right here. I'll show my phone. I had just dialed up 855-75 Civic, and I'm like, all right, we're doing this over the phone, and was just about to hit the little green button when the camera came back up. So with that little blip set aside, welcome back, everybody. For real.
Back.
Yeah, here at Up North News Radio, and let's bring in, thankfully, the connection is good with Senator Dianne Hesselbein to tell us more about what's happening in the legislature and on the campaign trail this year. Senator Hesselbein, good morning.
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Thanks for rolling with the punches here on a sometimes stormy morning, a rainy morning across parts of Wisconsin here. So, and actually what prompted when I first knew that there was an internet outage, the lights didn't go out, but was I was looking up some of our coverage of the last legislative session. And so I put in a little search term, and I put in Hesselbein because I wanted to see, press releases and things that you'd done. And it was just spinning and spinning. And I'm like, it's not that hard. She's busy. There's a lot of press releases and things that mention your name. And when no search results came up, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't see myself on camera. And so anyway, now that has all come up, I am reminded again, looking back at some of the coverage of the attempt by your Republican colleagues to override vetoes, of just how chaotic the last session ended. And it seemed somewhat apt given, the lack of tangible accomplishments in many ways in this last legislative session, after 12 plus years of Republican rule. So not like your own take, before we look ahead to the campaign, looking back at the session, and, I don't know, maybe the grade you'd give it or the overview of, what was able to be done in your chamber.
Yeah, well, the last week, the session was awful when they did the veto overrides. We know at the end of the day, the Republicans are going to have their votes, right? Mm-hmm. But it's always sort of been I don't know, we get along, we try to get along. But at the end of the day, they have their way, but they always let the minority have their say. But they didn't this time. They shut us down. They used procedures. We tried using procedures. The procedures that were legal that we tried to use, they wouldn't even recognize us. So that's where it got frustrating. It's like, if you just let us make our points, you don't have to silence us. We know you're going to have the numbers to override the governor's veto, but there's no reason not to let us talk. And so that was the frustrating thing. And they were trying to override the governor's veto, everything from PFAS, student teaching requirements, modification of public buildings, and then also override the governor's veto about the awful hospital closings that are happening in Eau Claire and Chippewa counties, and how the governor wants to get the $15 million out the door to get it to work, and the Republicans are holding that money hostage. So very frustrating. Senator Jeff Smith was extremely frustrated as well, because they wouldn't even let him talk about this horrible hospital closing in his district. So it reminded me a lot of Act 10, and I wasn't here for that.
And you referred to it as the last gasp of a gerrymandered majority. And it does have a feeling out there, kind of, a torch is being passed moment where, and again, we'll talk to your assembly colleague, Greta Neubauer, talking about chasing down, 15 seats for a potential, majority there. And even if it's not a majority, the whole notion of having fairer maps and what you think the legislature is going to look like next year when you have more competitive, fairer maps, more competitive races? What do you think next year? How will next year look differently?
Well, next year's already started because the work has been starting already for these campaigns. So we've already started work. We've got the Senate, as you know, is only up every 4 years. So that's unfortunate. We really wanted to get everybody running again so that we'd really have fair maps that represent the will of the people. But the Supreme Court decided not to do that. So we're up every 4 years. So a lot of people aren't up right now. So we are really, the first time, I'll say this much, the first time in 20 years, we have a Senate Democrat running in every single race, which is really excited. We're just so excited about this. And a lot of these people self-selected. A lot of them started calling me saying, I'd like to run against this person, or I'd like to run here, and they're quality candidates. We're really focusing, though, on 5. One of them is, of course, keeping Brad Path here. He's the only incumbent that we're really, really focusing on, just because he's had tough races in the past. But in the numbers that we look at about how people run races, Evers won that seat, the one that Brad Path's running for, about 55%. So we're feeling pretty good about that.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're also looking at Jamie Wall. He's running in Green Bay. I think you just had Dr. Lyerly on. Jamie's great. He's running for the 30th. And the numbers there were like 53%. So for Evers. So that's pretty good. When Democrats show up, we do well. So we have to just make sure that those people are motivated and showing up. Kristen Alfheim is running in the new Appleton Oshkosh seat. She ran last session against, last cycle against Senator Rachel Cabral Cabrera and lost by a narrow margin, but she worked really hard. So this seat would have her run now. And that looks really good for us number-wise. Finally, the 14th, we have a mental health provider, Sarah Kieski. She is running against Republican Joan Ballwig. And that one with Evers is about a 55% Democratic seat. And we like Sarah's chances there. Joan was an author of the No Abortions, Not Even the Case of Rape, Incest, or Health of the Mother. And I don't think that's going to do very well in Dane and Sauk County. Finally, we have Jody Havish-Simikin running in the 8th against Senator Dewey Strobel. And that's about, that'll be one of our closest ones. Honestly, that's like a 51% seat. So a Democratic seat, we think. So once again, if Democrats show up and are motivated, we're really looking forward to the fall.
And I'm happy to say that all of those folks have, been exposed to our audience on Up North News Radio. I'm sure we'll have them on again between now
Thank you.
and Election Day. And again, the fact that so many of them, self-recruited, the way that I did way back in 2005, when you say, okay, I've just seen enough. I want to see, what's involved in making some changes here. When you've got that level of self-recruitment, when you've got a strong incumbent like Tammy Baldwin on the ballot, and you've got Joe Biden who can run on a record of accomplishments, it certainly sounds like, again, even in a closely divided state like Wisconsin, unlike past years, it's going to be a fair fight.
I think so too. I think with these fair maps, and I think a lot of that had to do with, their self-selection too, because they were like, hey, with fair maps, I can give this a shot and I might have a shot at this. Mm-hmm. And before it didn't feel that way. Why? It was an uphill battle with these gerrymandered maps. So I'm excited. They're doing great. They're doing call time. They're knocking on doors. Some of them have already turned in the signatures, like 600, 700 signatures already. So that's pretty exciting. And their communities are excited. It's wonderful.
What was it like for you? Did you self-select? Were you recruited when you ran for legislature initially?
I first ran for school board in 2005, self-selected, and saw an issue there. And then from there, I went from county board and then from Dane County board to the assembly, and then did that for 10 years. And then Senator Urbanbach retired. And then I was like, oh, well, this is an opportunity. So I just kind of kept moving.
Very nice. Dianne Hesselbein is our guest, by the way, the minority leader for the state Senate. And we're talking about the campaigns this year and having candidates in every district to be running this year. I'm coming back to the PFAS issue because, as I've stated numerous times, just because I believe it to be the case. And it's not necessarily your job, but I think other people are going to bring up PFAS. And the fact that Republicans are still sitting on $125 million, that they would rather allow water to stay contaminated than to spend a dime to clean it up. And they can take shots at Governor Evers all day long. But I think that when you're letting drinking water sit contaminated, I just have a feeling that moderate voters are going to look at that and say, how about if you play these games later and you just get going on this? I don't know if that's going to be a central part of your message, but I wonder what you at least think of the public reaction to that. Or do you feel like these races are going to be decided on too many other things?
No, I think that's going to be part of it. I think Wisconsinites want people to, know that you can turn on their tap and have safe, clean drinking water for their families. The fact that we have people all over the place having to do bottled water, how expensive that is, how it's not great for the environment. And actually, we have to get the PFAS out, right? And we have to let the scientists do their jobs, which is what I talked about on the floor. I'm not a scientist, but I trust the Department of Natural Resources to get in there, find out who the polluters are, and to hold them accountable and to get it out. And that's something Republican parties did not want to do. They were just protecting the polluters in this. And it should never be that way. The governor was clear about what kind of a bill he would sign to get into law to help solve this problem. The Republicans would not listen. They did not want to hold polluters accountable. And that's the problem.
That is the problem. And I again, because far too often we've seen how the big business lobby, Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, will go to bat legally to protect polluters. There's no wonder why, being such large funders of Republican campaigns, you wouldn't assume that about Republicans. But to be fair, I'm going to ask it in their vein because I want to know exactly what your response to it is. And it goes something like this, that the partial vetoes by Governor Evers mean that innocent landowners are going to be affected, and that we, the Republicans, are the watchdogs for the innocent landowners, and it's Governor Evers who is the holdup to all of this. And that's their story, and they're sticking to it. So when I'm sure you're going to hear that in your district and others, what do you tell them?
Show me a time when the innocent landowners were held accountable, because that's not what we want to do. And Governor Evers also talked with them and said, give me something very narrow and let's work on language. That's not what we want to do. We have to hold polluters accountable. And the Republicans were not willing to go there. I was having a private conversation. I won't say with who, but it was with the Republicans. I said, let's try to get there. Let's try to, figure this out together. And they told me that they are in between the Department of Natural Resources and WMC. And I said, that's no way. You shouldn't be in between the lobbying business and the Department of Natural Resources. This has to do with natural resources and science, not Wisconsin Manufacturing and Commerce. And I don't know who or what Wisconsin Manufacturing and Commerce is trying to protect. Do they know something we don't know? I don't know. That makes me nervous as well.
Well, it should, because again, it comes back to those of us of a certain age and older saying, there was once a time when we tried to solve these problems, and then we'd figure out how to pay for them. But right now we're just leaving this drinking water unaddressed. The other issue that's been brought up year after year after year is Medicaid expansion, and not just either Medicaid expansion overall, where Wisconsin is one of only 9 or 10 states to not expand, or at least expand it for postpartum care a year after birth, where Wisconsin is now down to one of, I think, 3 states that doesn't do this. And again, specifically because of the opposition of Assembly Speaker Robin Vos. Is this the year that with voters they say, why are we such outliers and losing out on so much money and so much health care security?
I hope so. I think it's every year when we've been doing this and explaining it to people because people care. But I think finally now that we don't have these gerrymandered maps and the majorities, that we're going to actually finally be able to see maybe more happen with this, and especially more when we win elections in November. It'll be tight in the Senate, but hopefully with some negotiation we can get these things done. It's just terrible. Honestly, we should be giving our friends and neighbors the best health care possible. For years they were saying, when Obama leaves, we're going to unravel Obamacare when Republicans have the presidency, the Congress, and the U.S. Senate. Well, they did. They couldn't unravel it. It's something that's here to stay, and they're still saying they don't care for publicly funding healthcare. And right now, Wisconsin is. So we would save that money on our own budgets, which we could put towards the hospitals at HHS, right? We could do things like that or clean up the PFAS, but they just are. Robin Vos is just deadlocked into that issue and cannot really explain it in a way that makes any sense.
Senator Dianne Hesselbein, Senate Minority Leader, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to checking in with you throughout the coming campaign.
Well, this went really quickly. Thank you
I
so much
know.
for having me. I appreciate it. And get out there, find someone you believe in, and help out on the campaign.
Thank you, Dianne. We appreciate it very much. Civic Media News Director Terry Bell coming up next with 3 things you need to know to start the week. I'm Pat Kreitlow.
Life will be ecstasy.
All right, and we are clear. Dianne, thank you so much.
It was so quick.
I know, doesn't
It
it?
was like, am I going to talk about the Brewers? Am I going to talk about shared revenue? It was like a whiz politics prep, right? I'm like, okay, we could talk about all these things.
Yes, I know. It's the 50-minute, well, especially when we started with a little hiccup on the power there. But anyway, we'll do this again real soon.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, thanks, Dianne. See ya.
Bye.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. Got your note. Thank you for sending that as always.
Okay.
Let's see. Now I got to bring it up. I was out of town, so I didn't have time to do my usual copying and pasting.
Don't sweat it.
There we go. Yeah, I would have, if I'd have been home, I would have liked to have gotten like some sound bites from the convention podium here, but.
And I could have offered some too. I guess I should have thought of that.
Okay. Yeah, well, we got something to start with. That's what counts. All right. There we go. Bring this up. There. All right. 10 seconds. Again, tomorrow on the program, Matt Rothschild, retired from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, now working on a new podcast series with Civic Media. We'll have details on that coming up tomorrow. And Sharita Booker, social media manager for Up North News, will tell us about some of the stories that are most read, most clicked on, most watched on the Up North News posts. Meanwhile, Civic Media has their news director, Terry Bell, and he's here now, like every Monday, to tell us 3 things you need to know to start the week. Terry, how's your weekend?
It was nice. It was busy. It was a working weekend. I was up in Appleton Saturday with the Republican State Convention, and then I was did a little head start on Monday, as I often do on Sunday.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, but weather was glorious.
Oh, it was fantastic. Yes. So let's start there with 3 things you need to know that Wisconsin Republicans did hold their convention over the weekend in Appleton. Talk to us a bit more about either the themes or the personalities that were a part of it.
Sure. Well, the theme, I would say mostly the big takeaway is this is a party that continues its move to the right. And that was evidence in the resolutions that were passed at the convention at the end of the day on Saturday, calling for the impeachment of Megan Wolf, the state top election official, declaring abortion, quote, the murder of an unborn child, and calling for the elimination of the state income tax. There were also resolutions taking positions on things like, people of which gender can use which bathrooms, that sorts of things, girls and boys and transitioning young people in girls and women's sports, that sort of thing. So definitely a cultural bent to a lot of the priorities. Congressman Byron Donalds, he's a frequent surrogate for Donald Trump. He brought down the House. His speech went over extremely well. And they elected a couple of members to the Democratic National Committee,
or the Republican National Committee in this case.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah,
okay. Trust me, if they got some people elected to the Democratic National Committee, that'd be awesome.
Wow, that was okay. Huh. I'll be darned.
Okay.
Anyway, Terry Dittrich and Pam Travis. Pam Travis, notable for helping submit a false slate of electors for Donald Trump back in 2020. So.
That's the thing. The fake electors are still getting mileage. Again, the cultural and gender issues, impeaching Megan Wolf, again with zero evidence of anything. There was just a lot there. There was a lot there to work with, shall we say, from a content perspective, if you have, say, a talk show. But if you're a voter looking forward, that might be a little different. Like you said, the drift to the right is there. But to put the matter back on elections themselves, in the 8th Congressional District up in northeast Wisconsin, where Dr. Lyerly is running, and at least 3 Republicans, all to succeed Mike Gallagher, things are going to be a little different, perhaps, from a ballot standpoint. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, this is a very unique situation. So what you have is former Congressman Mike Gallagher, he stepped down a few weeks ago, which created the need for a special election. And that is because something that is baked into the Wisconsin statutes. If there is a vacancy in the U.S. Senate or U.S. House between the second Tuesday in April and the second Tuesday in May of the year of the general election, then the special election must be held, and it must be held during the partisan primary and the general election. So what you're going to have is the same race on the ballot twice, in the primary and the general. So to try to boil this down and make it as simple as possible, and it's hard because it's confusing, basically what voters will be choosing will be the person to represent them from that point up until January 3rd, and then they will be choosing the person to represent them after January 3rd.
Right. Basically the interim period between election day and the first day of the new session in January. If they didn't hold a special election, the seat would sit vacant all the way until January. But by doing a special election for the seat in November, you can then swear somebody in November, so the seat will only be vacant until November instead of January, which means it's possible, if people wanted to split their vote, you could have somebody serving in Congress for, a month and a half, and then somebody differently being sworn in on January 3rd. Conceivably. It could. But what's more likely to happen is a whole lot of people are going to be confused at the ballot box on election day. And I already feel I have such empathy for election workers, and it's going to be a little busier for them.
Yeah, the poll workers, the election officials will be very busy in the 8th district trying to educate people as much as they can.
And by the way, always looking for good people to serve at the local level as elections workers. If you have any interest at all, contact your local clerk. It would be so important. And finally, we haven't said it enough. This is the week heading into Memorial Day weekend. Going to be awesome. Going to be busy as well.
Oh, yeah. So what this should be is the busiest year on the road and in the air since the pandemic. AAA says nearly 44 million Americans will either drive or fly. Not only is that the busiest since the pandemic, but that would be the second busiest in the last 20 years. So clearly, people are itching to get back out again. Airlines are offering some incentives now. The FAA Reauthorization Act that was just passed last week. So from now on, it's going to be easier to travel. Say when you fly, you don't have to request an automatic refund for significant delays or cancellations. If your flight is canceled or rescheduled, you choose not to fly, you don't have to fill out a bunch of forms. You will just get redebited right back instantly. Family seating will be much less of a hassle now. No extra fees to try to get to your 4, 5, 6 people together in adjoining seats. And travel credits, you have to use them up within a year. Now you have 5 years to use up any travel credits that you accrue. So
that's good to know. That's good to know, because I once took up the offer to be bumped from a flight for a voucher, and that particular one was 3 years, and I tried to use it last year. Folks might remember me talking about that, and airline prices at that point were so ridiculously high that even with the voucher, it wasn't worth using it. So 5 years would have been nice to be able to hold on to that. So that's good information. It sounds like one of the 3 things I need to know.
We aim to please here, Pat.
Right.
We're working. We're doing our best.
Ding, ding, ding.
We're learning something here. Terry Bell, Civic Media News Director, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Bach, we'll see you at 10 a.m. with Matt and Air on air. Have a wonderful start to your day, and to all of you as well. Up North News is the Wisconsin outlet for Courier, a pro-democracy news network building a more informed, engaged, and representative America. You can follow us on social media. Sign up for our newsletter, upnorthnewswi.com. Thanks for being here. Have a wonderful Monday. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning.